Hi, I'm Grace Bando. I'm a medical surgical dermatologist. I practice in Bristol, Rhode Island. I'm very excited to be on this mission. I came last year to Jordan with Salam Cultural Museum, and I'm very excited to be here this year because we've partnered with Unilever and Direct Relief. So I think what we're going to be able to do this year will be greater than what we did last year in terms of the number of people served and the number of conditions that we can help. People need basic supplies. They need food, they need water, they need clothing, and they need basic health care. And one of the major components of that health care is, believe it or not, skin care. If they had access to something as simple as Vaseline, many of the problems that we intend to see here and that we do see here would not be nearly as severe as they are. Something as simple as Vaseline can help prevent severe manifestations of basic problems: dry skin, fissured lips, fissured dry feet.
Hi, my name is Samer Jabber. I'm a dermatologist from New York City. I work in private practice, and I'm also on faculty at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine. I just arrived in Amman last night, and I'm ready to start our first day of the healing mission in the Syrian refugee camps in Jordan. Here in the refugee camps, you see a lot of conditions related to their living situation. People's skin is extremely dry because of the harsh environment.
Today we saw probably 200 patients, and we're here in a refugee camp called Azmi Al Mufti.
We saw so many patients with just simple dry skin and eczema. Yeah, and we were fortunately able to give them simple things like Vaseline and steroids and make them better. We saw things that were much more severe, much more rare. We saw cases of leishmaniasis, which is a parasite transmitted by a sandfly. We saw families with scabies, lice, head fungus.
We saw children who came in without their parents because their parents were not able to bring them in. They were working or unavailable. We had a family of 4 children brought in by an 11-year-old, and they all had severe fungus involving their scalp. And the 11-year-old was able to understand all the instructions and is in charge of taking these instructions home to her parents in order to treat her entire family.
We just arrived on the 4th day of our mission trip, and we're in Al-Zatari camp. This is about 80,000 people, give or take, live in this camp. Syrian refugees who have fled the civil war in Syria. Zatari is now about the 5th largest city in Jordan. There's that many refugees here. There's streets, there's markets. People have lived here for 4 years, going on 5 years. It's hot and it's exposed and people are intense. And so the elements are very harsh and things can get exacerbated quickly.
Today was especially striking because of the conditions that we saw.
Many burns. The refugees here in Zatari are cooking over gas stoves. They're cooking in tents. We saw a lot of burns from hot water. So they're very difficult conditions for these refugees.
It's our last day of our trip. We're on our way to Zatari camp for the 2nd time. The one thing that's been so amazing of our time here is meeting and talking to the people. These people have been through so much. They are refugees. Many of them have walked from Syria here with just the clothes on their back. They've almost all had family members killed, wounded, or missing. And yet they are so resilient, so thankful, and just so happy to have people here to help them. It's been really touching.
We see children who have literally spent the last 4 years living in a dry desert without enough water, without enough clothing, without enough food, and they're smiling and waving at us.
It's hard to express. It's really amazing. And to be here and to have the chance to just give somebody something as simple as sunscreen or a little bit of Vaseline and to see them smile and be happy and say thank you and truly mean it is really special.
Refugee economies represents an attempt to rethink refugee assistance. It starts from the recognition that existing approaches simply aren't working. Around the world, some 10 million of the world's 15 million refugees are in so-called protracted refugee situations. They're often stuck in camps or settlements without the right to work, without the right to move freely, often dependent for many years on end on international assistance.
Existing approaches fail to recognise that refugees aren't simply passive victims, but actually have skills, talents and aspirations, and are often frequently involved in very vibrant economic systems.
They engage in production, consumption and exchange. They are frequently entrepreneurial and also part of the financial systems. Yet, the economic lives of refugees remain under-researched and poorly understood.
We've chosen to focus our research on Uganda as a starting point. We've selected Uganda because it represents a relatively positive case. It's a context in which the government has taken the decision to allow refugees the right to work and a significant degree of freedom of movement. And that's meant that this case represents an example of the boundaries of the possible if refugees are given basic freedoms.
This research was conducted in 2 refugee settlements, Changwali and Nakavali, as well as the capital city of Kampala. In addition to many interviews and focus groups, we also conducted surveys of 1,593 refugees.
Throughout our work, we've taken a participatory approach. Our research team was made up of refugees from the communities that we were studying. And this approach not only gave us really valuable and important insights, but also allowed us the opportunity to feed back something to the community through the training.
Our research findings in refugee economies are organised around 5 common myths, 5 popular assumptions about the economic lives of refugees. First, that refugee economies are isolated. Second, that refugees represent a burden on the host economies. Third, that they're relatively homogenous. Fourth, that refugees are technologically illiterate. And fifth, that they're dependent on international assistance.
Our findings challenge and nuance each of these premises. We find that refugees are in fact nationally and transnationally integrated in wider economic systems, that refugees can often contribute positively to the Ugandan economy, that refugees are, rather than homogeneous, quite diverse in the range of different income-generating strategies they pursue. The refugees are users as well as creators of technology. And lastly, that refugees are by no means uniformly or wholly dependent on international assistance.
Instead, our research highlights a range of really interesting findings that are often very counterintuitive. It shows that refugees often aren't dependent on international assistance, and in fact some 99% in our survey said they had at least some form of independent income-generating activity. The research shows that economic lives of refugees are extremely diverse. They don't just engage in the traditional farming activities, but often adopt less traditional forms of economic activity, engaging in transportation, developing cinemas, even running computer games parlors based on recycled equipment.
Refugees' economic activities are networked and also part of wider economic systems. Congolese fabric and jewelries are coming from as far as China and India. Even agriculture crops made by refugees are sold and bought across the borders. In other words, refugees' economic lives are globalized.
Refugees use technology, including mobile phones and the internet, often at higher levels in Ugandan communities. Crucially, when given the opportunity, refugees show that they can make positive contributions to the national economy. Refugees are employed by and employ Ugandans. They also take part in the exchange of goods and services with Ugandan entrepreneurs.
Our research has a wide variety of implications for policy. It highlights the importance of market-based interventions. Rather than assuming that refugees are dependent, we can build on what already exists. If we can understand the complex economic systems of which refugees are a part, then we can potentially improve those markets, but also empower refugees to better participate and benefit from those markets.
The key to this is helping refugees to help themselves, not seeing refugees as passive victims. While refugees may need assistance, they have capacities as well as vulnerabilities.
Intervention should nurture their capacities, for example, through improved education, access to microcredit, business incubation, and increased internet access.
Our work focuses on Uganda, but our research has implications for a wide range of contexts, not least of which is the current Syrian crisis. If we can recognize and better understand refugee economies, we can help design approaches that turn humanitarian challenges into sustainable opportunities.
And in a way, sending the wrong signals. When you make a selfie, like Merkel did with refugees. Well, you need to make a selfie then also with the solution. It needs to be a solution selfie. How can the Turkish... Why should the Turkish refugee camps be emptied and come to Germany? Or why should the rest of Syria... You need to make a war-ending selfie, if you like, and not a selfie which says, welcome all to Germany. You need to make a solution selfie, if you are Merkel. And the German and the European, old European idea of solidarity, humanity, and so on, will be still more active. And it should end this instrumentalization. Not the opposite of friendship and of helping refugees is the reaction and the right thing. Not to be polarized is the reaction, and still having a different kind of political signal and a different kind of solution, which is in urgent need now, I guess, because we in Germany will not always be in the position to be so friendly, if you like, because we are now wealthy, and so we in the end can allow somehow to be like Merkel. And then you have also this Merkel battle with Seehofer, and I have described it that Seehofer is the most likely candidate to follow up Merkel, because he's a conservative or somehow, and so he is in a way maybe even positioning himself for the follow-up if Merkel wants to be 2017. If this has been the year of the election, I forgot that, but anyway. And so there's also these things, and then whatever Russia is going to do, if there's a different kind of foreign policy, if there has been a shift to, and well, some people would even say that's good, because they also said, Seehofer said and others said, we want to do a different kind of foreign policy, we need Russia as a partner, and so it is also maybe a mouth argument and not a real acting argument of those. And so if you change then from Merkel to another one, it will be not so bad in the expectation of Russia and of others. And for us Germans, we have the sovereignty split in the system critical moment. The same thing, I guess, than in America, with a different kind of expression in the concrete factors. You have these polarization line in a different way. In Germany, we have these there's not so much support in the end. It's much more stigmatized and cornered, the sovereignty movement, to be independent and so on, to be national and to be independent from America in the end, to be independent from the whole multicultural brainwash media industry, or to be freed from the influence of that and the results of that. And it is a huge influence over the decades, and it has been a huge influence. And sovereignty is good, but, well, it's also somehow overemphasized, I guess, this, because and people need to be clear about the possibilities of and the success chances of sovereignty. Germany will never be sovereign. It is sovereign and it is not sovereign. The sovereignty is not really sovereign, because it's acting like an American, I wouldn't say puppet, but in the end it's an American ally, and it's too strongly bound without a strong, clear foreign policy handwriting. And it's maybe even a good time for Mr. Steinmeier and Angela Merkel to have a lead in the foreign policy to solve this, and to be the bridge for Obama to really solve this, and to be the helper to enable Obama, because he then, without isolating him and forcing him by isolating him and not giving any chance in the isolation, if they would ally too much with Russia and so on. And so it would be good to discuss the concrete solutions. And I don't see these solutions so very much discussed in the end. And if I see them discussed, the argument lines are always pro-America, pro-Russia, and this is the over headline, the thing, and so it's escalated. And this is a shame, because we always support and feed this polarization by having this as the outgoing point for the debate. The debate needs to be, how can people be enabled, how can a solution be reached, and not by having the premise and the problem too much as an outgoing point of pro-America, pro-Russia. This is always linearing the whole thing, and by that disabling any solution, this is at least as my experience would say, if you like. Okay, so please do more and better content and pray, and, well, excuse my tiredness, and I hope I will be able to do something different in the next weeks and months, and so I can interrupt my content work, and I hope others will step in and do what I did in a more concrete, maybe even more precise, not so language hindered and language sentence building hindered or unclear and non-linear way, which is more easy to understand from more people. But anyway, and so be blessed and see you.